This is the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Welcome back here for episode number 114. Today, I'm talking with Darrin Bradbury about his brand new albums, Talking Dogs and Atom Bombs. But before we jump into that, I want to remind everyone this podcast is available on all of your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud, all of those places, so make sure to subscribe and rate on your favorite platform. So, Darrin just released this brand new project this month. It is his first under his new contract with Anti Records. And it's one that is filled with a lot of humor, a lot of really funny lines. My personal favorite, the picture cried out, "I swear I've been framed." Darrin's just kind of an interesting and really funny guy. So in this conversation, we talk about the album and a whole lot of other things. Darrin is just a really fun guy to talk to. We touched on a lot of different things, including even some politics stuff, some stories he told me about growing up, and all that good stuff. So here's my conversation with Darrin Bradbury. So when did you start working on this latest album, Talking Dogs and Atom Bombs?
I started working on it we finished the record last December, but I had written most of it the year prior to that. Mm-hmm. And it's coming out in September.
Yes, it's just a couple more days, just about a couple weeks away, about 11 days until the release date. It's coming up close. You excited for it?
I'm very excited for it. It'll be cool to be able to go around and see the record in stores and such like that. That'll be kind of a trip. I've never had that experience before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be pretty cool. The first question I have to ask about this record, of course, I think comes back to the name, Talking Dogs and Atom Bombs. Why that specific name?
Well, they are... Why that name? It seems a rightful juxtaposition between the two extremes of the album, which in one hand speaks of basically sitting around one's house, waiting for inspiration to strike, staring out the window, looking at your dog, and then the other of it being touching upon sort of more of the existential threats of the record.
Okay.
But it just seemed like a good phrase that kind of balanced well together and came off the tongue and rolled off the tongue rather. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was, especially when I saw Henry's painting, the one on the cover, I was like, this should be the title of the album, Talking Dogs and Atom Bombs. I mean, how can you not love that dog on the album cover? I mean, even if the record is turds in a punch bowl, I'd buy it just for the painting on the front.
Oh, that would make that's going to make a pretty cool vinyl.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the name.
Okay, yeah, and I find that interesting. You said, staring out the window, almost like looking for inspiration. What was the process like making this record? Was it a tough one? Was it a more difficult one?
To write or record?
To write.
No, they were all fun to write. When you don't really have any rules for writing them, I set out to sort of accurately paint a still life of sort of the life that I was living in my house and dealing with all sorts of, you know what it's like to be home and depressed. I mean, this album's basically about being home and depressed, and then trying to make light of it or trying to find the lighter side of that sentiment. So it was kind of fun, and it was easy. There were no rules. When I got bored with writing a song, I just called it over. And if I felt like it, I didn't really have that kind of pressure on. It was more to see if I could make these ideas that were in my head sort of work, Mm-hmm. I'd have one thought that kind of struck me, and I would see if I could follow it as far as I could down the rabbit hole, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And still feel like it was a song worth presenting.
Well, I certainly enjoyed listening to this record. But this sense of humor, you kind of touched on it right there. I guess how do you try to incorporate that into your music?
Well, it's a lot. I try to, everything I make, I try to have it come back down to the thing where if you know me, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That's pretty accurate reflection of Darrin's personality. So that's the barometer that I'm using most of the time. Is this something I would say? And every lyric on the album is something I would say and then did say. Sometimes I'm glad that you see it as a sense of humor because, sometimes it's a bit dry and folks don't see it that way and they see it a little bit more as more of a stark painting of the human experience. But I think every song that I have is a song of hope and a positive spin. And, laughter is sort of it's a rude emotion like crying. And I don't know, I'd much rather laugh than cry, Mm-hmm. But I think both accomplish sort of the same emotional catharsis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both have that kind of release of emotion to them.
Yeah. So I think that's, there's different kinds of laughter, and I try to go for that sort of gut laugh, not sort of the ha-ha fart joke laugh. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's a certain art to that as well, but it's not really the art that I do,
Exactly. You gotta stick to what you do best. So you have that kind of sense of humor, and you mentioned that this album is about, kind of being home and being depressed. And I've seen that in a lot of things describing your music. Is that kind of balance of almost humor with that? There's some of those personal battles you've dealt with. How do you try to, I guess, mix and blend both of them into your artistic expression?
Well, I don't attempt to. I mean, I've said this before, and the reason I repeat it is that it's sort of accurate. Is most of the time writing for me, I'm not a very good piano player, but I sit at the piano and I hit out some basic chords in a key that most people know, and I just start talking to myself until I accidentally make myself laugh or stumble upon a thought that kind of interests me. It's sort of like a melodic typewriter. And I've literally talked myself into these songs. I don't really ever write them down. I don't ever, but I guess it's sort of trying to deceive the brain. If you can make yourself laugh and catch yourself off guard, then maybe there's something worth saying there. So it's not an attempt to blend, and it's more like, to me, it's like, all my songs are normal songs. They're just the things that I think about, and I try to just put the things that I think about on a record. So it's not an attempt to blend, but it may be an attempt to cover the tracks of a deeper depression. But it's really a process of guessing and kind of letting yourself say something that, and then seeing, and you have a thought or an idea, or and I write chronologically. I don't ever write backwards. I don't say this is the third verse. How am I going to find my way to it? At least not on this album. So every line kind of is followed by the next logical conclusion of a line until I get to the end of the thought. And most of the time, like entropy, once you set something in motion, the movement is there, and the next logical thing to say, it gets more effortless as you write it, because you're sort of, you could see it metaphorically as like a whittling process or an unwrapping,
Mm-hmm.
And it just gets easier. So they write themselves, I guess, because I'm. It's kind of like mine. I don't know. Does that make sense? I never know if anything I say makes any fucking sense.
No, I think it makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. What it almost is making me think of is almost like you have this kind of self-conversation. This conversation talking to yourself, and it's like, okay.
That's a great way of putting it. I'm surprised I should have thought of that. That's a great way of putting it. I got to write that down and send it to my publicist. Yeah, whole album's a conversation with myself on why I'm such a sad fucking bastard. part of me is like, hey, cheer the fuck up. And the other part of me is like, nah, I'd rather just sit here and eat Jimmy John's.
Hey, that's not that bad.
Or Taco Bell.
Both of those are pretty good options, I say.
And binge watch down YouTube rabbit holes of conspiracy theories.
Oh, those sometimes get you.
I love them. I mean, I'm not a believer in any of them, but God, they're just like modern day mythology. You know, it's fascinating what people come up with. You know,
exactly. It's like I don't believe in any of them, but the way the connections that people make are pretty impressive. Sometimes it's like I never would have thought.
Oh,
of
and they're so entertaining. It's like a whole new form of entertainment. Like what wacky shit is coming out of some dude's brain in Albuquerque? You know,
and like they're taking it seriously, but most of the audience is just there to kind of like wonder what the hell is going on.
Well, I mean, I wish I could. I wish I could believe that it's all the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that would be so fun. If I'm in show business, I'll call you and let you know. Pardon me. This is my first record, and 3 records from now, I will call you and say, "Man, check it out. It's all true."
Oh, it really is.
All lizard people.
The triangles, the lizards, all of it.
Yeah, no, I wish, man. But you know, I think that we're just a bunch of sad apes who have too much time on our hands because we've conquered a planet. I've always thought, you know, lately I was trying to write down some thoughts, and one of the thoughts that I keep having is what that magic moment must have been like when we were all like apes in somewhere on the, in Africa or wherever the heck, where it were monkeys and trees, and then there was these lions, and then like the idea that like we were social creatures, and then like I imagine that like one day this monkey had like a friend, and they were hopping around the tree together. They were like, "Oh man, this rules. This is great. Oh man, isn't it cool that we just like take shit off each other and eat cherries? Eat these little like fig fruits or whatever." And then one day, one of those that monkey that was his friend gets massacred by a lion. Dude goes looking for his friend, can't find his friend, finds his friend dead, having been mauled by a lion. And in that moment, he must have seen himself and then therefore seen the outcome, and then bands together and then sees like rocks, right? Mm-hmm. I imagine this. And he starts picking up rocks and starts hurling it at a tree in anger. And then it dawns on him. It's like, fuck, I can throw this rock. So he goes up this tree, says, when these lions come around, y'all, let's pick up these rocks and throw it at the lions. And then the rest is history. And that's how I think it all began.
That makes sense to me.
And I think that maybe. I mean, I don't know if it was how I've said that more eloquently before, but I think that as a species, we're a relatively simple creature. Mm-hmm. We have these superficial, complex emotions, but and we've been fortunate or unfortunate enough to have all this time on our hands with all this excess crap that we don't need to think about those complex existential emotions. When really, I mean, I think it's pretty basic. Mm-hmm. What is it? Eat, fuck, shit. Basics of life, ain't it?
Yes, I think those are the 3 pillars.
I think I could write a book about that, probably.
I don't know if that title would get published, though.
I think, man, anything, as Gus says, your podcast, anything goes these days, man. They got politicians cursing everywhere, left and right. It's a whole new world for language, for expletive language. And I wonder what George Carlin would have thought of it. President dropping F-bombs and shit.
This really is a golden age for the curse words.
Yeah, but what we've done to language, I mean, emojis, man, those are the worst things. We've just truncated language into these just, and I'm not doing the best today. It's late in the day. I do much better at 10 o'clock in the morning. But what we've done to language in the last 10 or 15 years is just a catastrophe. People used to speak so eloquently. They used to speak with poise and thoughtfulness, and now we just everything's, I mean, really, you could probably read an entire book where the with is just a W/, and you wouldn't think twice about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's messed up, though. But it is the progression of language. I don't know. Anyway, next question.
Well, I think if I could add one thing onto that, I think it's like almost like everything's like a tweet. Can you fit it into that limited number of characters? And you just start dropping letters, dropping words, and replacing with emojis and everything.
Oh, it's just horrible. I had a flip phone for a while, and then when I got the record contract, my manager made me get an iPhone. And I came to an age of T9. I'm 32. So, I mean, we would spend afternoons writing poetry with our thumbs on flip phones to one another and to girlfriends and to friends. And you could write a whole sonnet with just your thumb. Mm-hmm. And not like the way this is, where you had to press all the numbers to get the letters. How old are you?
I'm just in college right now, so I'm mostly.
You're in college, yeah. You don't even remember T9.
Yeah, I'm old.
You probably downloaded the Snake app.
I used to have a flip phone though. I used to kind of remember pressing the numbers and stuff though.
Oh man, yeah. I the best thing I ever did was to go back to using flip phones. It was a beautiful thing. I highly recommend that anybody in this day and age just take 3 months. Ditch off a smartphone. Learn what it was like to just communicate. And now I don't really even use my phone nearly as much, mm-hmm. Because these technocratic overlords have us on lockdown with what we're viewing and listening to and speaking about, and we're all glued to this device that's in the palm of our hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have you ever?
I'm sure that you're tired of hearing old people bitch about that, but
no. But if you've ever checked out on your iPhone, you can set those screen time limits up. I've noticed that really helps me stop from spending an hour just scrolling through Twitter or something like that and wasting time.
Man, the only social media app I have is Instagram, and I make myself have to physically log into both those two things because they're sneaky. They make those whatever Safari version of Twitter and Facebook really difficult to navigate. So you'll download the app, mm-hmm. But if you've got the willpower, it keeps you off there because you're like, man, this sucks to operate.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to be someone in college right now. I mean, do you have an attention span? I'm not trying to be rude.
Oh, no.
What's that like?
I mean, you talk to people in college right now or just, around my age, and the attention span is so low. Everyone's texting 15 people at once. It's pretty bad, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible way to live, man. When I was a kid growing up in Jersey, we would just, we just got cell phones, and that was a fairly dangerous thing. This was right after 9/11, which I can't believe was 18 years ago. But we'd meet at diners and chain smoke cigarettes and hang out at biker bars and drive to the top of mountains, and we wouldn't be able to communicate with anybody but the people we were with, Mm-hmm. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic then. I'm not even painting it with the nostalgia brush, Mm-hmm. I think things have really gone to shit in the last, particularly the last couple of years, but technologically speaking, the last 10 years or so, I think it's the whole thing's a shit show.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about your future?
My future? I feel pretty good about my future. How do you feel about yours?
I don't care. I'm old at this point. It doesn't fucking matter. What's your intent? So you're in college. What are you studying?
Media Studies and Production up here at Temple University.
Okay. What got you into that?
I just always liked it growing up. I always watched Sports Center. I get up super early before school and watch Sports Center. So I decided I want to be on TV one day or just do something with media. And ever since then, just pursued it.
That's really cool. Do you feel what would be your dream job?
my dream job would be if I
would
could
be a
sportscaster, or even just doing this podcast. If I could, get that full time, that'd be pretty cool. Just interviewing people, talking about music and sports, anything.
See, music. What kind of music you dig?
I've tried to broaden my horizons. Growing up, I mostly listened to my parents had on, some older rock, I guess, but then I got into hip hop. But now I'm listening to some more folk artists, listening to some more alternative, everything now, because I'm trying to broaden my horizons.
That's good. It's good to broaden your horizons. I'm not meaning to rag on you for being young. I think that it's a cool thing. I don't speak to enough young people. I don't know what they do. What do you do with your time?
Well, I usually try to, do something productive, like do a podcast or, I read a lot of books compared to other people my age, because I find that that's a lot better than just sitting around on Snapchat or something like that. So, but if most people...
Explain to me Snapchat. And congrats on the books. I tried to understand it. I don't understand it.
So the point,
I don't get what the point is.
The point is basically you just send a video or a picture to somebody, and it just disappears after they see it.
So the eradication of language, it's the beginning steps of mental telepathy.
So what we were talking about. Yeah, what we were talking
I'm here
about
right now. I didn't no context, no pretext. Just this is my moment.
Yes, You mentioned earlier we're getting rid of language. Well, nowadays you just get Snapchats on your phone where there's no typing, there's no words. It's just a video of something that they're seeing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to go somewhere. You know what I mean? There will be high art that comes from this, and actually, inversely to sort of what I was saying before, I think that the digital age has been the greatest time for folk art. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's been a better example of folk art than Vine. You know what I mean? Like art made by real people in real time. And I'm not talking about high art, but the art is supposed to be a representation of the human experience in a way that is palpable to others and is reacted to by others. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, all of this has been brilliant. You know what I mean? But it just turns out that what we like most is, watching fail comps.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, there has to be something out of that. I mean, something, I have a hard time imagining that anyone could ever be nostalgic for where we are. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, try to put yourself 30 years from now. And I'm undoubtedly wrong, because somebody will be nostalgic over this, mm-hmm. over what it was like for the Snapchat generation. Yeah. But somebody will, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I mean, I've watched retro technology become sort of this almost like a boutique type of experience, where people, they want boom boxes and cassettes and, flip phones, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's all coming to this point where it's just like, I think in 10 years, it's all going to be in our minds. Mm-hmm. We'll just have these mental networks. I don't know how it'll do that. I don't know if it'll be through. I mean, a couple months ago, I was walking around some downtown in some city, and I realized that people willingly put earbuds into their ears and basically listen to whatever someone else tells them to all day long. Mm-hmm. And this is an acceptable thing with this illusion of choice. You're being anything that's in media. Anything that's media consumption is some sort of narrative. It's some sort of version of persuasion. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't be the only person that when I've fallen asleep watching The West Wing, I wake up the next morning with Aaron Sorkin thoughts in my head, Mm-hmm. And my mind sort of runs to the beat of the Aaron Sorkin timing, mm-hmm. Anyhow, I'm probably going to be a least interesting podcast. I'm sorry, but they really give you the shit deal on this.
No. This is actually really, really interesting. But I think something you mentioned there, like that whole illusion of choice and like the whole what good comes out of this. I think of the music industry, and something I think about a lot. With the whole age of streaming, it's awesome because you get to listen to all these different artists. But most of the time what ends up happening is everyone's listening to like the same 10 artists because they're on Spotify's top playlist or Apple Music's top playlist. So even though you think you have these limitless options, no one's really taking advantage of it.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I think though, I'm one of the few. I mean, the reason I loathe Spotify is its algorithm, and exactly what you said, the prioritization. Not because I don't care about who listens to me. I mean, a small group of people listen to me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a niche artist. You know, but it's that same thing where. Really, I've always thought about it is that when I was growing up, the last thing you wanted to do was to be part of a trend. Mm-hmm. But we have these aggregated feeds that only bring us the most viewed information that floats to the top. And that's in Spotify, it's in the news, it's in movies and film. And it's sort of it takes a step, it takes a personal choice to turn off from the algorithm and to decide what kind of music you want to listen to or what kind of content you want to ingest, which I, once again, not very eloquently put, but it is slightly terrifying. But you know what? You know, on the same side of that, radio wasn't all that different. Mm-hmm. And people were paying lots of money in which to do that, to get their songs placed in the places that would get heard, which was through the radio. And there was the top 100 songs, or the top 40, or the top 10. And most people only listen to that. So it's not all that different. I just think that the aesthetic of it these days really drives me bonkers. Mm-hmm. And its massness, and it's I don't know. I grew up in a time where I think, you know, my generation was like the generation that we got Facebook when we were in college, and you had to have a college email address in order to access it. Mm-hmm. And I remember the internet as a free place. I remember the internet as just sort of random chaos and expression through micro, you know, smaller networks, and watching it transform into this just conglomerate of targeted, marketed ad bullshit. It almost makes you feel like you know, I think every level of my career has gone from one platform to another. I think, you know, I booked my first tour through MySpace when I was like 19, you know, and then switched over to Facebook and all the different platforms. And watching it just become this sort of, I remember having to explain to people, you know, how the internet worked. Not that I was ever an expert in it, but it's gone wildly out of proportion. So anyway, that's my old man rant of damn you kids and get off my front lawn.
Well, there's actually a media terminology that for what you're describing, it's that the internet has become a bunch of walled gardens, that there's all these different subsections, and that we think you can.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's actually a really like big media concept going around right now. So you hit on something pretty incredible there.
Well, there we go. I mean, you know, it's just the thoughts. I think it's got nothing. You know, I don't digest any of that shit. So walled gardens. So like, well, I mean, okay, that sounds like some. A nice way to paint. You know, everybody's locked in their own room.
Yeah, basically.
Where's the choice in that?
Yeah,
you know, is it saying that people freely go from garden to garden? Because I find that hard to believe.
No, it's more describing how the fact that we think of the internet as this giant anything goes free place that you can kind of go to any part of it you want, but in reality, most people are just kind of in these little walled gardens. Like they go to Facebook.com, they go to Twitter.com, they go to Reddit, and they go to these kind of same spots. And very rarely do we go out, or are we really allowed to kind of go out of these different giant subsections?
I think the sad part is, of course, we're allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that the whole, it's built on showing you more of what you've already been looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, for me, man, if you look through my YouTube history, you'd be very confused into what my political beliefs are, which I'm born and raised, tried and true Northeastern Democrat. But man, I'll go down any rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what all the crazy people are thinking. I want to know why they're thinking it. So I subject myself to tons of media that I would be embarrassed to be seen watching.
Mm-hmm.
But at least then I can say that I've watched it and I understand where someone's. I did that with Trump because, I mean, being from the Northeast, I mean, you know that Trump's been a joke since we were kids. I mean, Trump's an idiot. You know?
I grew up right around Atlantic City, so yes, I'm.
Yeah. But man, when that guy gives one of those frickin' speeches, I watch the whole damn thing. And I don't just watch the bits that have been sold to me as what is the part where he makes himself look like an idiot. Because I want to know what the hell this guy's really saying. What is he really saying to these people out there? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's another thought I had recently, man, and I feel more confident in it now, you know, with the Democrats pulling together somebody that'll really challenge this guy. I'm way into the Elizabeth Warren. I think she's rad. And I think every day she's kind of proving herself to be more of just a true contender, just in her thoughtfulness and her compassion and her also just like badassness, you know what I mean? And she has plans, and I don't know, I'm in. But for a while, man, when you watch enough of those Trump rallies, it's Zeppelin 1970 or 1975, or it's an arena rock band, and this guy is about to release his second follow-up album to his smash hit, and the crowd is loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrifying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't want to get too political. I try not to. I think it's hard for my age bracket because it was like, I think I remember voting for Obama and being like, we fixed it. We fixed everything.
It's done.
Everything's okay now after 9/11. We elected Barack Obama twice. And I think it's been hard to see that I can't believe that there was this fallout from that. I mean, you can say what you want about Barack Obama's policies or the fact that he stayed in Afghanistan too long or any of that business, but he was a good and decent person who did the job exceptionally well, you know, because it is a job. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know. You might be, are you a Trump guy?
I am not a Trump guy, no.
Do you see a lot of Trump kids in college? Is it true what they say about that there is a young alt-right?
I definitely have met people that are, I guess you could classify them as young alt-right. But for the most part, most people I meet in college or, you know, in my age group, they're mostly Democrats. It's kind of that traditional, when you're younger, you're more Democratic.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, but I'm older and I'm still more Democratic. You know, I don't see myself getting any closer to being a Republican, particularly not in this stage.
That's what my parents are saying right now.
That they're Democrats or they're Republicans?
They're getting further and further left.
My dad did that too. My dad sent me a selfie. He's a fairly young guy. He's 55. Of him at a protest. For after Trump got elected. It was one of the women's marches in New York. He lives up in New Jersey. And my dad, man, I think he voted for Obama, but he, you know, growing up in the 70s or whatever, you know, he started his own business in North New Jersey as a landscaper during the 80s. And I'm sure he didn't see any issue with Reagan. You know what I mean? And he felt, he's always been a firm believer in the American dream. And you work hard, you pay your taxes, and you get something out of this place,
Mm-hmm.
And you build things in America. And I think he was like, walls? Not building walls. Not into that. So he went, I don't know if he's going to like me saying that on a podcast, but, And he's actually, it was funny, and I'll bring this up, too, as the last closing thought on that. And living here in Tennessee, I live in Madison, which is sort of right above East Nashville, and it's a very diverse neighborhood. But a lot of what you would, consider Trump folks,
Mm-hmm.
And they're not bad people. You know what I mean? They're people that were sold on this American dream thing, feel disenfranchised, whether rightfully or unrightfully. It's not for me to say,
Mm-hmm.
but I can empathize with, by witnessing the poverty that my part of town is in. I can empathize with all poverty, man.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so the point I'm driving at is that they kind of got duped. But
Mm-hmm.
my dad, who runs a landscaping business in North New Jersey, has a lot of wealthier clientele, and he sounds so brokenhearted when he sees these like rich assholes who are like, yeah, Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I can't imagine that sort of sense of like, how can you be someone of any kind of means and buy into this just for the regulatory breaks? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of soulless asshole are you?
Hey, I've seen
Does that
people
make
like
sense?
that. Yeah, I've seen people like that. I understand what you're saying.
But I don't experience that down here as much. You know what I mean? Living in my neighborhood, I experience more of the people that you can just tell got sold snake oil.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm conflicted about the whole thing. I mean, I don't know. This probably wasn't the greatest tangent to go on. You think it'll start some sort of Twitter riot? I've never been in the middle of one of those things. I've luckily evaded.
Me
Evaded
either.
all.
Yeah, never been in the middle of one of those.
Man.
So hope maybe we can get our first one together.
I don't know about that. If do you edit this thing, or is this like just is this a stream of consciousness? This is what you say is what you get.
What you say is what you get, mostly.
Holy shit! Oh well.
I mean, if you want me to edit that out, I can.
Well, here's the thing, man. Tell me how it reads back if I go on some Trump rant and I sound like a complete idiot. Cut it out. I mean, I don't want to put it out there if I didn't sound like a moron.
You did not sound like a moron. I can guarantee that one.
All right. Well, then there we go. As long as you say it's true, I believe it. I mean, it's in the title. Anything goes. So
Exactly. People know what they're getting. I want to go. I only have a little bit of time left.
You want to go back? We'll go back.
I want to go back to the album real quick. Just kind of wrap this all up. This is your first release on this record label, Anti Records. You just got signed to them. You've had so many self-funded projects. You said earlier in the interview you're going to be excited to see your record out there in stores now. What does it mean to you to finally have a release coming out as part of a record label?
Well, what does it mean? It's an interesting question. Well, I want to speak to the broader reception that I've gotten so far of the record, which is that people like it. I've been very surprised by that. Mm-hmm. Not that I think I've made a bad record by any means, but I was curious if the thoughts that went on in my brain would relate to anybody else's. That was sort of the risk of this particular type of record. I mean, so the fact that a label heard that record and was like, you know what, I believe in this. Let's make sure that people in Japan can buy it. I mean, there's just nothing cooler. but that speaks to the overall thing of which has been my goal since I started, and probably the arc of my story is someone who's weathered the digital, a folk singer in the 21st century who has weathered the digital revolution and the upheaval of modern society. So that to me is it's rad, and there's no two ways about it. And the fact I wake up every day with somebody new that's calling me on the phone asking me about my record, and I'm just, every time I'm kind of blown away, and I'm kind of like, what, really? Well, I'm glad that spoke to you. That means a lot, because I write this stuff because I hope it connects. And so it's I'm interested to see how it all pans out and how it all plays out, but it's been I moved to Nashville 6 years ago, living out of my car in a Walmart parking lot, and 6 years later I drove to the YMCA this morning and saw my name on a billboard next to Mavis Staples. It's pretty wild, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my only goal is that the songs are, I'm a firm believer that at least the line of work that I'm in, which I kind of consider being a writer, is, you know, I say that in lowercase, not uppercase, is to connect. And it's there's nothing cooler than having an emotion or some sort of thought that two or more parties can relate to and feel similar about. And as long as they keep hiring me to do that job, I'll keep doing it, you know?
Exactly. Well, those...
that answer that question?
That answers that question perfectly, yeah. I mean, that whole story about the Mavis...
I'm still getting used to the phoner thing, man. It's weird, you know?
It is a little odd to get used to, but I think this is one of my favorites I've ever done, so thank you for that.
Oh, man, that means a lot. And, you know, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's and I spoke with you this afternoon. I spoke with Billboard magazine this morning. You know, it's like, it's weird, man, you know, but it's cool. And, I just want my goal for the record is for it to be a companion piece to your bad day. Mm-hmm. That's it. And, Anti's ability to help with that, is rad. And yours as well.
Well, again, a big thank you to Darrin for coming on to the podcast. Make sure to check out his brand new project, Talking Dogs and Atom Bombs. It is out right now. Go down into the description. There you'll find a link to listen to the album, as well as a link to follow Darrin on social media so you can keep up to date on when he goes out on tour, so you can see the record live. And with that, that'll wrap it up for this episode of Anything Goes with Jackson Neill. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on your favorite platforms. New episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Visit JacksonNeillPodcast.com. Link to that in the show notes. There you'll find the archived episodes to this podcast, as well as my other two podcasts, sports and music discussion podcasts, which are released throughout the week as well. If you're a really big fan of the show, maybe consider becoming a subscriber on Patreon. For just a couple dollars a month, you can get access to really, really cool bonus content from all my podcasts over there. Don't have any bonus content from this interview, but have a lot of cool bonus content from other interviews I do here on Anything Goes. I write, record, produce, do everything for these podcasts myself as a full-time college student, so any little bit of support really, really does go a long way. If you want to stay up to date on all my podcasts and everything I'm publishing, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, @JacksonNeil20. Today's music is by Analog by Nature with their song CDK Sunday. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you all next time.